So I just got off the phone with a client using my coaching services, or actually he emailed me a list of questions that he had about bathroom remodeling and running a business. He was from the military. He's thinking about going into bathroom remodeling as a full-time business and just had some common questions because he knows that I've been a one-man show for quite a long time. And that's one of the main reasons I got into bathroom remodeling, primarily because you can pretty much do all of this yourself. You don't need to go out and hire anybody. Now, granted, there's a lot of days that it's really nice to have help, but you don't need to be relying on that because the space is usually so small and it really just is a one-man type of project. So I'm going to go through some of the common questions that I hear from my audience along with his questions, and hopefully some of these tips help you out when you're thinking about doing bathroom remodeling as a full-time job. And I really implore you to do that. We need more tradesmen out there, and there's a big high demand for this. So if you're looking for a six-figure salary pretty easily right off the bat, you can do that in bathroom remodeling. And be sure to check out the links below. I have a lot of courses that outline the how-to of this, and that's obviously what this whole YouTube channel is about. And my social media platforms is helping you plan, learn, and build your dream bathroom. So let's get into his questions. So number one is, how do you go about working solo and carrying heavy items? So this is a great question. It's usually very troublesome in some aspects. Cast iron tubs, definitely something that is extremely heavy. Using something like a power dolly going up the stairs really helps out. I didn't even know these things existed. But this is where if you found somebody, a friend, a family member, paid them cash to help you get some of these items up, once you get them onto the second story, you can do it. But when it comes to demo process, busting up that cast iron tub, breaking it into manageable pieces to get rid of it really helps out. So there are some scenarios where it's just almost impossible to do everything yourself. So, I would say try to get the jobs that are going to be able to be done by yourself. So a normal 5x9 bathroom, most of the times you're pretty manageable at being able to do that. But getting a good dolly helps out. His second question was what's the best setup, a van or a truck and trailer? Well, I've never really owned a van, so I don't know how useful that would be. But I do think that having a trailer, a tow trailer, really helps out a lot, primarily just because you're able to leave the trailer on most job sites. So leaving it in the driveway, having all your tools there set up, and then you're able to use a pickup truck to transport items back and forth. I always did think about doing a box van of some sort, but I just think that the overall expense of that and running that continuously with all your tools and equipment just ends up being more expensive. Now, if you were doing a lot of repairs, just like minor handyman repair type things, then I could see where the box van or a regular van really makes a lot of sense because you're only going and doing a 1 or 2 hour job. That's one of the reasons I really like bathroom remodeling, because you're normally there for at least 2 weeks. Depends on the scope of the project, but say, a full bathroom renovation usually takes a minimum of 2 weeks to do. So depending on what you're doing, you could be there 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on how high end the project gets. And so it's really nice just to have a tool trailer to drop off in the driveway, have it there set up for you to be able to work every day. So you're just transporting your pickup truck back and forth. Now, getting rid of all this demo, I used to get dumpsters. That became very problematic because it's really tough. You can't really move them once they're in place. And a lot of times you really don't need a dumpster for a regular bathroom renovation. Most of the time you can fit everything in the back of a pickup truck and find a transfer station near you that you can unload and dump this stuff out. So, I would have to say that a pickup truck is definitely going to be imperative to have as a bathroom remodeling contractor. And in the trailer for those items, that's definitely, becoming something luxury. But, if you're just starting out, just start out with your pickup truck. It's not fun, but you can carry and transfer all your tools in the back of the truck, and it just takes more time, essentially. You're just taking a little bit more time setting up for the job if you have everything on the truck all the time. So that would be my advice. Eventually, definitely get into that trailer scenario. But for years and years and years, all I've used was a pickup truck to be able to get rid of all of the demo process of the project. His next big question, now this was, what's the process for you creating quotes and stay competitive? So I really think that the best avenue of winning a job is in the presentation that you present. So this is just a regular Google Drive doc. This is basically a Microsoft type of area. It's really fairly simple software. It's anything special, but I just really find it important to highlight every aspect of the bathroom and highlight the different parts of the project. If you do this, you'll be amazed at how many people are impressed by the scope of work and the organization you have with it. And also itemizing out some of the product. And you don't necessarily have to do everything as far as itemizing, but it does help clarify what the people are paying for. And a lot of all of this particular quote here does include most of the majority of the materials, but I do exclude a lot of the things that are going to be basically have a million different options. So like the shower faucet system, I usually leave that out, let the client purchase that. So that's not included in the quote. The tub itself, there's a lot of different scenarios, vanities, sinks, mirrors, like all the things that there's a million different options out there. I would advise just having the client purchase it, let them haggle over the price and be able to do things. And at the end of the day, it ends up making your quote look a little bit better because it doesn't look, what the real true expense is. Not that you want to hide that. It's just when they're trying to compare to somebody else's quotes, yours is going to really stand out with the organization you have. Include pictures. Even if they're not yours, I would just go on Google Images, come up with the tile layout that they're asking you to do, and represent that in the quote. There's really nothing wrong with grabbing a Google image and doing that. This is just literally for presentation and explanation of what you're doing. So if you can do that, like most of my projects, I've always just gotten my own photos from previous projects and just included that on there and say, hey, this is the tile layout that we're discussing. And if you come back with marble, it's going to be more. So you don't want to put too much red tape into a quote where it's just going to they feel like everything that they ask you is going to be an extra. But it really, at the end of the day, that's pretty much what it is. If it's not in the quote, it is extra and you need to charge for that. But itemizing things down into a picture form, really kind of takes away the confusion. So this does take time to do. You're more than welcome to use any of my quotes. In all of my courses, I have basically these quotes that for each one of the projects. So you can you can download them, change them the way that works best for you. You can use all of my images for all I care. It doesn't really matter. I'm just wanting you to be able to provide a good competitive quote. And really, I think that the presentation of this really does make a big difference to the client. It just makes them feel at ease that you have everything kind of itemized well, and they know exactly what you're getting. He also asked me, do I use a CRM software of any sort? And I've been very, very curious of this. I have not used any of these systems, but they definitely seem really, really awesome. Like this one's from Jobber. So this is basically an app system that can schedule your invoicing. You can invoice to them. You can basically communicate with them on change orders. You can use this as their estimating software on things. So I think, I really haven't, opened up this app and tried it, but I think it's something that would be tremendous if you have a lot of different jobs going on. Just because the fact that you're able to basically save the communication between you and your client and make it easy for them to pay. I think that's one awesome thing, is that you could just send them an invoice upon signing of the agreement. They pay right up front, and then your contract's all done. So I think that's a really awesome benefit, but I really want to just mention that all of this is an additional expense per month that I think just starting out doesn't make sense. This will create efficiency, but I think what you should concentrate on if you're just starting into bathroom modeling is just concentrating on the project itself, rather than trying to get more efficient at book work or estimating or anything like that. I mean, I just think that the tools that this is going to provide is not going to be worth $100 a month to be able to use. I think over time, it would save you time when you're going out and estimating things, but I think you should take that time to do estimates and get the pricing of things so that you're really comfortable with what you're doing. I think this would be something, if you start to really get more jobs and more volume, and you're going out and you already have 6 months of your schedule booked out, and this is just going to make it easier. This is what I would recommend using right off the bat on your first couple of quotes. Now, this is going to be for your own private use, but these are basically spreadsheets that you can just put together of every single item that you're going to need for the project. And I think this is very valuable. So just for instance, the electrical, you can have every item that you need for the electrical, from the vent fan to the timer switch to the 4 duct vent, the 3 switch gang box, having all those things. Now this takes time to put together, but really, you're going to be only adjusting maybe 10%, 15%, depending on the price of things. But you could get a really good gauge of what all of your items cost. And then you can just reduplicate this on the next project and then add those specific items that you might be buying. I would just, this is a kind of like a pen and scratch paper of every item, but I think it's really valuable to use. And then it's not a waste of time because you're going to be able to use this again on the next project. And then you can just kind of add everything up and know exactly where you're going. And then you can also, tweak this as time goes on. You found out that you ended up spending 10% more on the last job. So you just keep increasing that price and trying to adjust things to get it as accurate as possible. So what software do you use for layouts in 3D rendering? That's a great question. And again, this is an item that I don't think is necessary for you to have. This is nice when you start getting into those big bathrooms and you're really rearranging things. But for the basic bathroom renovation, I don't think it's very important. But I do use Chief Architect. This is a fairly expensive program. And again, I don't think it's something worth spending money on until you're very confident with that you're going to have the jobs that this is really worthwhile in. As far as the 3D rendering, I have not gotten too much into that. I think that is a very luxury item to be able to show. And I don't know how much that's really going to sell the job for you. It obviously would make things look great and give people a perspective of what my things look like. But I don't think the normal, say the $25,000 client that is having their bathroom renovation done, I don't think a 3D rendering is necessary at all. I think just pictures and just kind of presentation to that quote, like I just showed you earlier, is really sufficient. 3D rendering, it's great. And HGTV always shows, how amazing that is. But I just don't think that that's really something that is required. And really, that's kind of a designer's aspect to come up with. So if a client is that concerned about, how the project is going to look, they need to hire the designer. He was asking me, what marketing strategy do you use for getting new clients? This is a great question. And the resources that you guys have now, it really makes me jealous because when I started out in 2000, you didn't have the internet really. You didn't have all these ways of doing it. You had the yellow book and you had, basically physical signs that you had everywhere. So it's so much easier now, but I would say the number one thing is get a Google profile with your business and get some pictures of your projects on there of any sort, because Google will map you out exactly where your location is. And when somebody's looking for a bathroom remodeler in the area that you're at, it's going to show right up. And that's really how you're going to get a lot of leads. I get calls literally every week still just because of my Google profile and where my location is. But if you just put a little profile on there, try to get some reviews from your current clients. That's really what your goal should be on the first bunch of jobs, is getting reviews, getting pictures, and getting things more set up. So Google, number one. I would even say in some ways do that even before a website. I think you should do both simultaneously, but at the very least, just get a Google profile with your business name. So, they usually have your website that links straight to it. This would be the number two thing that you should definitely do, is get a website. These are very inexpensive these days. Just, showing about who you are, a picture of yourself, showing you like, this is what I'm doing. For instance, the guy that I'm talking to on this particular project, he was from the military. Tell him that you're from the military. You want to start your own business and that you have a lot of passion for the building process and you're just excited to get out there and do bathroom renovations. That's going to resonate with people. Let them know who you are, and you can do that very easily on a website and locally. People are going to pick that up, see that, and be very interested in calling you. But having your portfolio on there, even if you don't have a huge portfolio, just get a couple of the pictures of the projects you've done is really enough. And then obviously getting your own reviews on here really helps out as long. So as you can see here, I have my Howls reviews here. So when I had the Howls.com site, that's where I would get reviews as well. But I definitely think having your reviews on your own website is really important, and obviously a contact page. Now, this is where if you want to spend some money for marketing, I think this is the only place to go these days, and that is Facebook, because the boomers, the boomer generation, are still on Facebook. They're not getting into the Instagrams. They're not getting into the TikTok. They're not getting, might not even really be into YouTube, but they certainly are into Facebook. And Facebook, I think, is very, very well worth the expense of advertising on here. So you could just put up a post of some sort. Like this is just an image of a glass enclosure project that I had done. You can easily just boost this on Facebook and be able to, have them go to your website or call you. And then you're just basically paying to go out to people that are within your area. You can narrow it down to the clientele that you're looking for. So I think you'll get a lot of notifications on this, or at least leads that way. And I think if you're going to spend $100, this would be the way to do it, just to get more leads coming in. Just because the fact you can target this down to your specific area. And hey, let's be honest, the boomers are the ones with the money. So those are the ones that you want to advertise to. And I've always said, I think if you just went to doing tubs to walk-in showers, I think that'd be a great niche in the bathroom remodeling field to get into, because all the boomers need it. So Facebook would be the only place that I actually would really advertise and spend money on. The website's basically free, and the house.com profile is essentially free. So, I would say this is like the last thing to do. It used to be a lot more prevalent when I was starting, but just having free profiles on all of these, do all your social media, get on Facebook, get on Instagram, get on all those sites. But I would just focus on Facebook, because I think that's going to be the best place. The place that I would not go to as a newbie would be Angies List. I definitely don't recommend this. This is basically a way for them to make money off of all the contractors. They essentially make sure that you're bidding against multiple contractors for the same job. And it's like, even look at these questions. These are not intimate questions. This is just somebody might be asking about how much something costs, and they're going to cost you to be able to provide that quote. So I just find that Angies List is a horrible investment on the contractor's end. Maybe some of you disagree with me, but I think if you're an established contractor that has an established listing on Angies List, then it can be very powerful. But if you're just a regular newbie getting into this, you're going to have a hard time winning these jobs. You're not going to have the reviews on there. You're not going to have the portfolio that shows everything. And you're going to be automatically bid against two other people that they're going to be able to quote from. So I've always found that these type of leads are really awful, and they're very expensive. Last question he has is, what is your best advice for preparing to start a full-time in 60 days? So that really is going to come down to getting that Google profile, getting that website. And if you have another job and you're trying to move out of it, you're going to want to go out and look at these as many leads and jobs as you can. So if you got that website and that Facebook profile together, start advertising now. Go out and look at jobs. Tell them you're booked out for 60 days, because that's honestly, anybody that's like available immediately is kind of questionable in my mind. Like, what's going on there? Why are they available like next week to do a bathroom renovation? Most of this time, you're going to want to give your client 3 to 4 weeks before they even start the project. Let them think through everything they actually want. Once they mull it over and commit to a price, they're going to need to go shopping. They're going to go look at the tile. They're going to go look at the vanities. They're going to go back and forth. They probably have jobs themselves, obviously. So they're going to have a lot of questions throughout the time. And if you rush the process because you're ready to work in 2 weeks, that's going to just make it harder on you to complete the project. So I think if you're planning 60 days ahead from now, I think that's awesome. Go out and look at as many jobs as you can, and then, present them well, and then, basically schedule them right when you're ready to start them. If you give your client 3 to 4 weeks, that's going to give plenty enough time. Now, if there's clients that need this done next week, you have to question that as well. Why do they need it next week? What happened? Now, obviously, if they have a leak in their bathroom, that's a whole different scenario. But majority of the time that I've experienced when somebody says, I need to get this done in the next 2 weeks, it's because they actually hired a contractor that didn't work out. and they're pissed because they didn't, the contractor's not showing up. So that's just going to create stress right off of you, right off the bat. Or, they're just very indecisive and hard to work with. And so, anybody who needs the job done next week is, you have to really question that. If it is a leak of some sort, I just recommend, trying to have, tell them to call a plumber, fix the leak. For the meantime, usually it's not anything that, it does cost more money to do that. But if you're doing a full bathroom renovation, I mean, you have to schedule this out in a few weeks. So so I think 60 days is a perfect time frame to be able to get yourself set up and ready for those jobs. But estimate. Don't worry about your competitive pricing. If they come up and say, hey, this contractor's willing to do it for this much and blah, 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 like, don't fall into that. I mean, people that are searching for the lowest price are not usually the ones you really want to work for. At the end of the day, you should be looking at the relationship and what you're trying to achieve. And they're quite honestly, there's not that many tradesmen out there. So for somebody to full service do a bathroom renovation out there, you don't have that much competition. And I really, really would not be concerned about with what the competition prices are. Because if they are a lot lower than you, maybe they're doing less quality products. And those things should all be highlighted into your estimate. Hey, I'm going to be using the Schluter system, or I'm using the Weedy system, or I'm using HydroBlock. Whatever it is that you plan on using, specify that, because if another contractor comes in and says, hey, they're so much cheaper, why is that? And you look at it and they're just using Hardy Backer with no waterproofing, you explain to the client, hey, they're not even planning on waterproofing your shower. So, you go with them, you might have a shower that lasts 3 or 4 years. Mine's going to last a lifetime. And, I have all these products that I'm using that are high quality. So you're going to have to sell yourself in that way as well. And that's why trying to compare yourself to other competitive pricing just doesn't work. And then if you actually see the big businesses, like the big ones that have all like these huge crews of people, they're going to be way higher than you, because they're accounting for employee taxes and all those things. So you should never really have to be concerned about that. The bigger you get, the more expensive you usually become. And the cheaper the price, it's usually because you're using inferior products that aren't very good. So hopefully that helped you out. Let me know in your comments down below. But check out my courses. I have a lot more information on the estimating process in there as well. And you can always reach out and ask me a question. So thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon.